Hello. So in the previous video, we looked at how we can add Firebase to our project. Very nice. So we added Firebase to the project. It's very straightforward. There is a setting file you have to add, and then you have to add the SDKs, the Firebase SDKs or libraries that are needed in the manifest, in the build Gradle files. Now, what we also need to do is we need to use Firebase. So let's look at one of the services that Firebase provides, which is a very important service, which is the authentication service. Meaning, I want Firebase to manage the user login and creating user login and password for me using, for example, an email and password. So the users, I want them to be able to log in into my app. So now, if you look at your project overview, here's the project overview. It shows you the project and so on. I can click on authentication, for example, here, right? And then it takes me to authentication. Now I could enable authentication. So when you look at the develop side, I could enable authentication, for example, and you could see that I want to get started or I want to start authenticating. So I get started, and then it's going to tell me what kind of authentication you want. You can log in using your Apple ID, Google ID, Facebook login using Facebook, you log in Twitter, and so on. So many of them. I'm looking for username and passwords, meaning email and password authentication. So I clicked here, and I will enable it. And I'm not going to click on this password, this link. I will enable email and password authentication. I click on save. Now I have enabled authentication. Who are the users in the system? There are no users. The sign-in method is email and password, right? And the other ones are the other features here are more related to the email forget password. For example, if the user forgets the password, they get an email, and then that email has a link. They click on it, and it enables them to update their password. We're not going to discuss it right now, but the sign-in method that I used is just email and password for the time being, and so on. So now I'd like to integrate Firebase authentication into my app. So to do that, I will go to documentation. So basically, if you look here, this is the console. I'll go to docs, go to docs. This is documentation, and we are looking at the Android side of the world, right? So here it is. It shows you the prerequisites, blah blah blah, and so on. I'm going to look at this. You can look at this in a little bit, and you look at authentication introduction, and it talks about authentication, and so on. So I'm interested in authentication and in Android, and I'm going to use not the sign in using the pre-built UI. I'm going to use with the Firebase SDK. Right, so I'm going to look at the Firebase SDK. So I need to add. So we already, if you remember, we added to the app. We added already the Firebase Firebase dash bomb and the Firebase Analytics. We already added them. So you can see here we added it already. Now we need to add the Firebase authentication part. So we copy this, which is the Firebase authentication SDK. So here it is. I added the Firebase auth. So basically this is the base Firebase, and then this is for analytics, and then this one is for authentication. So basically we need to add authentication SDK, right? So and then click on sync now and click and so on. So now what we need to do is the documentation is really amazing. So when you look at the documentation, it tells you that whenever you need the authentication system, you just use the Firebase auth. So basically, it's the Firebase auth class that you use, and then you say get instance. It gets an instance of it, and then you can ask it a lot of questions. Is there a current user? There is no current user, and so on, right? So now let's have a look at, let's build something quickly. So let's add 2 fragments. Let's say we create let's create some fragments, a blank fragment. We'll call it, for example, the login fragment. Here it is. Create another fragment, and I'll call it the fragment, and I'll call it, for example, the register, right? The register fragment or the sign up fragment. Here it is. And I'll create another one. Will I call it the main fragment, which is or the user who's logged in, or we could call it, for example, the logged in. Or the main, let's call it the main fragment, which is the screen that you should go to when the user is logged in, right? Close these. We don't need all of this open. Right, so let's go to the login fragment, right? And basically, I'm not going to pass anything to that login fragment, so I don't need all of these parameters and all of that stuff. That we don't need all of this, and I don't even need this, and we don't need this. So here is the login fragment, right? And similarly, I don't need in the register fragment, I don't need all of this also. I'm just going to remove all of this. And here we are. I just need and this one is fragment register. There it is. And similarly, the main, we will do the same thing. We don't need all of that stuff, right? So I'm not going to pass any data between these fragments. Here it is. I'm going to remove all of that, and here we go. This one also out, and here we are. Okay, so we have the fragments. Right now we can go play with the login. I'll just show you the login, how we can do the login. It's very straightforward. It's really simple. Here's the login. I need to have a username and a password. So let's say we convert it to a constraint layout. I'll just add, I need an edit text. So edit text email, and I need another edit text as a password. Okay, I need some buttons, maybe a button here and another button. Okay, so here we are. We'll call this the login screen, right? So maybe we okay, so this is going to be the where's the hint here? Hint. This is going to be the email, right? That's the email, and this is going to be the password, right? So that's the email and this is the password. We'll just do this, and here we go. It's the email, this is the password, and I'll just add some buttons so that we could enable, say here, maybe you can submit. One of them is going to be the submit, the other one is going to be just register or something. So this is going to be the submit button, right? And then we create another one which is probably, let's say, register, right? Here we are, just for the sake of testing this, right? So here we are, and maybe we go all the way here, adds a little bit of padding, let's say 10 dp, and I go back to the design. Here we are, and then these guys I'm just going to play around with how they are set up. Right, here we are, and maybe give it a little bit of margin. Similarly, this guy, give it a little bit of margin. Here we are, some margins. Password, email. So this one is going to be the email address, this one is going to be the password, this one is going to be, let's say, cancel or register, and then this one is going to be the login, right? And this button is login, and this button is register, right? There it is. Okay, so here they are, very straightforward. I didn't do much, just created the layout. Now we can go back to the fragment, and I can show you that how logging in is straightforward. So here we are, this is the login, right? And on create view, we create view equals this, and this is the view we are going to return view, right? And then we're just going to get all these the email, and so this one is called email. So this is an edit text. Here's an edit text called email address, and the other one is going to be called the password. Here it is. All right, so we got that. So we can get the edit text email address equals view dot find view by id r dot id dot edit text email address, right? Here it is. And then similarly, we have the edit text password equals view dot find view by id r dot id dot edit text password, and that's the email and the password. We retrieve both of them, and then we need the buttons. So we say view dot find view by id r dot id dot button login, right? So let's set on click listener, new on click listener, so that's one. And then similarly, I have the other button, which is the cancel button or the register. So basically this is button register, and here we are. Okay, cool. So now it's very straightforward. If I want to log in, all I have to do is use, first of all, I have to get this mauth, right? So I have to get this mauth, so we can even create a private variable here, which is the mauth, and import the library. Here's mauth, and basically to log in, all you need to do, so basically to log in, I get mauth equals Firebase get instance. So that gets you the mauth, right? Firebase auth dot get instance, that gets you the mauth. Now to log in a user, if you see mauth dot, there is sign in with email and password. See that? Sign in with email and password. And basically, that's how you sign in. So basically, if you scroll down a little bit, signing in an existing user, right? Basically, sign in with email and password. And then what you do is you add a complete listener after that. Okay? So basically, sign in with email and password. So basically, here it's going to be the email. There is an email here. There will be 2 strings that you need to specify, right? The email and password. So basically, we can go and check first. We can go and check to see if the user has entered. So it could say string email equals edit text email address dot get text dot to string. So that gets you the email. And then similarly, you can get the password, right? This is the password. And that's the edit text, the other edit text password. So you got the email and the password, and you can check to see if they are empty or not empty. So you could check to see if email equals or is empty. Then you can show an error message, and then let's say toast, or you can show an error message or get activity. You can show an error message, so you could say enter email, or you can even show an alert dialog or whatever, right? So this is if the email is this, and then else if the password is this, then you could say enter password, right? Then else, this means none of them are empty. Then you can do this stuff, right? So basically, we can go here and do this. We can create the mauth, and we can go from there. So basically, that's the mauth. And you can even you can even initialize it when the view is being initialized here. You can keep it, it's fine. You can keep an instance of it here. So here it is, you get an instance, right? And or let's keep it like this so that it's easier for you to remember. Here's mauth equals sign in with, and then sign in with email and password, and the first string is the email and the second string is the password. So this is email and then comma password. Okay, so that's this. Then you register add on complete listener. See here, add on complete listener, and basically we want the one that gets the context. So basically, it's going to get the context and the on complete listener. So this is, we say get activity and then new on complete listener. Press enter. Okay, so that's basically all what we did. Here it is, and then there's an on complete listener. So this returns back a task. Right now, if that task could be successful or not successful, you could say, for example, if the task is successful, this means everything went well. Else, the task is not successful, right? So basically, if it's successful, then the user is logged in, right? This means that the user is logged in. So basically, they could say log the. Okay, this means it's, or we could say, for example, logged in successfully, right? And let's define this tag. It seems we're gonna use it a lot, so we'll use string tag equal demo. Alright, so that's when you are logged in successfully. And then similarly, if you're not logged in successfully, this means that there is an error, right? There is an error. And then basically you can get the error easily, right? Basically you can get the error by getting the exception. So basically you can get the exception. So you can get an exception, and I could show you, for example, here we can do a logd, and we could do this. We could say task.getException.getMessage. That gets you the message, right? Gets you the actual message that caused that exception. What caused the exception? Okay. So basically, when you try to log in a user, you call this method right here, and you passed in the email and password. It's gonna check. Firebase is gonna check, does it have this email and password? And then if everything, once it completes, then you check to see if it's successful. Successful means that it's the user is logged in, right? Otherwise, it will send you a message. So let's try. So if we run this, we just need to make sure that this login is the first one that loads. So let's go to the main activity and remove this one and just give this guy an ID. We call it, for example, content view. Right, and then we go to the main activity and make sure that the main activity loads the login fragment, right? All right, so here we do get support fragment manager dot begin transaction dot commit, right? And then basically here we dot add, and we say r dot id dot this, and then we say new login fragment. Okay, so basically we're just loading the login fragment. We run it again. So in the login fragment, when the user tries to click the login button, something is going to appear, right? So basically here we are. This is our code, and all of this is gonna run asynchronously. So basically, once you sign in, this doesn't mean the sign in happens. It happens only when the on complete, and then it gets back with the result, right? And then you have to check to see if it's successful or no. So now let's click register. We should get, when I click register, nothing happens. We didn't configure anything with the register, but when you click on login, it says enter the email. Let's say a@a.com, right? So I did that. And let me log in. It says enter a password. I'll say 1234556. And I click on login, and it says that nothing happened. So basically, I go here, nothing happened. When you look at the logcat, and we do demo, right? And it says there is an error. It says error, and basically error because I clicked twice. So let me delete it and click it again. Login. Okay, I'm clicking login. And you can see here that it says error, yeah, because there is an error here, right? And then it says there is no user record corresponding to this identifier. The user may have been deleted. Yeah, we now don't have this user. So I'll go to Firebase Authentication. I click add a user, right? I click on users here, and I click add a user, and I'll add that user a@a.com. So you can add users from the console, or you can add it through the app also. Let's do the password as 1234556. It needs the password to be at least 6 characters. It's not a very strong password, but we're testing. All right, so here we are. I now added that user. When I click on login now, and here it is, it says logged in successfully. What if I enter the wrong password? Let's say I enter the wrong password, and I click on login. It says password is invalid. The user does not have the user does not have a password, so it's invalid password, right? So now when we enter the right password, we get the right password. So you could see that we outsourced the authentication system to Firebase completely, right? So now I showed you how to log in a user, right? In the next video, I'll show you how to sign up a user and how to manage the layout of the app. Please let me know if you have any questions.